Oh, it is wood, Your Honor.
Of a kind called mahogany. I don't suppose you've ever seen wood before, have you, citizen?
Hey guys, I just finished stripping the cabinet. I used a combination of 50/50 lacquer thinner and acetone and this product, which is basically the same thing. I just happen to have some on hand. I figured I might as well use it. And I did just like they show in the photo. Safety glove, steel wool, gently rubbed it till it started dissolving, and then wiped it clean with some shop towels. Slight discoloration you see here and there. That's just basically residue left over from the stripping process. Once put on new finish, it will disappear. And I think you would be hard pressed to pick out the repairs if I didn't show you where they were. So we got a new section of veneer here, and here, and one over at that end. Up on top, this whole strip is new. And you can pick out the patches on front pretty easily because you can see where it clipped off here, but remember that will be covered over by the frame. Didn't bother stripping out this area. That's pretty well covered by the reverse painted safety glass that goes in the front. But I will go over it with some brown paint. You can see it's just really roughly finished. Basically this is just the plywood base material, and they just routed out a couple of the layers of the ply, so it's just the backmost layer of the plywood, kind of thin. Alright, so no sooner did I get it stripped than I'm just going to put some new finish right back on it. But I think I should address a few issues first. Once I stripped the top, I realized there were some dings in it. These are especially nasty. And these aren't just mushed in parts of the veneer. I think they're gone. Well, rather than cut out a whole strip across the whole top to patch in a new piece of veneer, I will just make some small patches and just glue them and press them down in there and sand flush. I don't think that'll really be too visible. This kind of dark here, I don't know what's going on with that. I think it's just down in the wood. Not much I can do about that. Here is a ding where the veneer is mushed down. I can try steaming that out. Otherwise, ready to go on with the finish. And first step I'm going to do is wash coat of shellac to seal the wood, and then that'll raise the grain a little bit, and then I will lightly sand it. Got a good deal on some foam brushes, which I will use to apply it with. I got like 36 for less than 10 bucks, something like that, so that'll work out great. Once that's done and been lightly sanded, I want to do grain filling. In the past, I've used Constantine's paste wood filler. Works great. It's oil based. I don't like the water based stuff. Well, I was placing an order with Pond Cove Paint for some supplies, and it gave me a chance to try something out that I recently became aware of, is that Mohawk makes some grain filler. And I really like their lacquer products, so hey, maybe their grain filler is good or better than the Constantine, so I'll give it a try. Heavy stuff. Small little can, quite heavy. It's supposedly pre-mixed to a thick consistency. I think I can use it straight out of the can. They do also sell solvent. I don't know what that is. I'm thinking if I need to cut this, I can just try using mineral spirits. In these other cans, well, these are going to be for a little experiment I'm going to be doing. Got some perfect brown toner. That'll be for this cabinet. Both the dye kind and the pigment kind. Pigment for around the bottom, where it should be opaque around this whole base. Perfect brown for the rest. And remember, this bottom strip I want to make a little bit darker. So I'll see how the brown looks. If I like it, I might just use 2 or 3 coats down here and one up here, or something like that to make it a little bit darker. Or I do have some other types of brown on hand I can try. Now these guys, the Super Blush Retarder, No Blush Plus Retarder, and I got some other retarder type supplies on hand. That is going to be for this. Not sure when I'm going to give it a try, but the finish on this is quite nice. Rather intact, decals and all, except it's alligator everywhere. Fine cracks and crazing in the finish everywhere, but really no finish loss. So what I want to try to do is what they call reflowing the finish. And this is actually very similar to that Admiral 20 X136 did recently, where they have burled veneer book matched right down the center for the control area. And I'd really like to retain that if at all possible, but it looks kind of crummy the way it is. So this, I'm a little skeptical if I can get this to look great, but the rest of it, I have higher hopes. So what this retarder is, it's basically lacquer thinner with some chemicals that will keep it from drying out so quickly. So the idea is you spray it on, the lacquer thinner will dissolve the old finish, and it will stay liquidy for longer because of the retarder, which will give it a chance to reflow. You want to do flat surfaces, flat level surfaces one at a time, so I'll like mask off parts and do like this, flip it on its side and try doing side. I've heard it's a tricky process at best, and I shouldn't get my hopes up too high about it working out. Well, I figured, hey, it's worth giving it a try. But for now, I'm going to focus on this project. Well, steaming out those dents didn't really work so well. So what I did in those areas and the areas where the veneer was entirely gone, I took a little drop of glue and took some mahogany veneer and sanded it up to a fine powder and pushed it in, making essentially my own wood filler. Once that hardened, I sanded it flush and then took a sharp knife and made some fine lines to simulate wood grain and put shellac over it. And it works out pretty good, I think. So I did this spot and this spot, and these I'm still waiting to dry a bit, and then I'll put shellac over them. Alright, let's give this Mohawk grain filler a look. I like the can. They give you a plastic sealant ring and then the usual metal lid. I guess it's to provide extra sealing so the stuff doesn't dry out. And as they say, gotta mix it very well. It's typical of grain filler. High solids, and they really settle down in there. So this is gonna take a while to mix up. Tell it's lighter in color than the Constantine's. Constantine's Mohawk grain filler I've been using was almost black, whereas this is sort of a really dark reddish brown. So I got to mix that up really well and then start applying it. And they suggest burlap, and that's what I commonly see suggested. I've tried it before with mixed results, but since this is a product I haven't used before and they recommend it right on the can, I'll give it a try. So mix that up good, spread some on, work it into the grain with this burlap, and wipe off excess as it dries, and then let it sit overnight. I found it was much easier to pour some of the grain filler out into a small cup and mix it up really well in there. And slopping it all over the cabinet. And I'll start working it in with the burlap. I finished up with the grain filler, and I really don't have much of an opinion about which is better, Mohawk or Constantine grain filler. They both seem very similar to me. The only slight difference, I suppose, is that the Mohawk has a little bit less of an odor, and I think it comes in a wider variety of colors. But otherwise, both do an equally fine job of filling the grain. So here's one of the sides, very nicely filled in. Next up, I am going to brush on with a foam brush a little universal sanding sealer. Give it a light sanding, and then look real close and make sure all the pores are completely filled in. If not, do a little touch up, and then start putting on some new color with the toner lacquers. My can of sanding sealer has definitely seen better days, but should be good enough to get through this project. So it looks horrible going on, super cloudy and white, but it will dry clear. I think it's actually some sort of water-based vinyl. Universal sealer, meaning it's compatible with any kind of finish. Lacquer, shellac, polyurethane. So I'm just putting on a nice even coat. I'll dry about an hour depending on weather conditions. And then lightly sand. It's really easy to sand. I'll show you once it's dry. It forms like little white beads that actually kind of form a lubricant. Very easy to get a nice smooth finish. Now I mentioned weather. Speaking of weather, weather is crummy. It's raining almost every day. It's gotten much cooler. I don't think we even hit 70 today, and the humidity is like 90%, so it's slowing me down a bit. I don't want to rush putting on the lacquer. I don't want to get blush, even though I've got the blush retarder and eliminator and all that, just as soon as I use it. So I think I'll just take my time with putting on the sealer and sanding it and getting everything perfect. Wait for the weather to improve a bit before putting on lacquer. The only issue I've had with this stuff, I used it on my kitchen table, and there were some spots where table boards are kind of warped, so there was like a depression, and I put on a lot of layers of this trying to build it up level. If you put this on really thick or build up a lot of layers, it will be cloudy. But for something like this, it really shouldn't be an issue. It's just going to fill in any tiny voids left from the grain filling. And then form a good surface for the lacquer to bond to. Oh, and it's water-based, so I can just rinse out this foam brush and use it again. And zero odor. Alright, it's dried enough now. I'm using 400 grit to sand. I just tear up small pieces. This type of sandpaper kind of has a thick, tacky back, so you can get a decent grip on it. Otherwise I fold it over a bit and kind of go like that. But with this, just go like this. So here's all that white stuff I was talking about. And what's cool is that it doesn't clog up the sandpaper. Like if you've ever tried sanding shellac, that clogs up the paper really fast. But this stuff does not. It sands up very easily. Alright, so I will keep doing that two more times if I need to make it perfectly smooth. And then, depending on the weather, I will put on the finish. Maybe a little while before the next installment, but hopefully not too long. In the meantime, I will start working on that Philco 7008.